Hey guys, it's Crystal here, Sober Onions podcast. I am here with my friend Shay. She is in Utah. Hello, Shay.
Hey, hey.
Hey, Shay, I met you via internet. I have actually met so many people over the internet. It's incredible. I feel like with Zoom and with social media, if I had this back in the day, I probably could have been Jennifer Aniston for sure. You know what I mean? Like I could have been like access to everybody because I love people and I love all this communication and I love that like Instagram really makes you be able to connect and then we can connect via Zoom and it's like we're sitting in the same room and talking. So I love it.
And it's awesome because we get to know each other, like even if we were in real life, it feels like we're in real life. I know we're not.
Yeah, I mean, I talk to people on social media sometimes more than the person I'm, next door to or in the same town. It's wild, and I love that about it because it allows me to see and talk to my family that's far away. And I think the biggest thing for me with social media is the sober community. The sober community has just risen the bar. I mean, we have taken sobriety and we've made it a positive thing. We started talking about the real side of it, which is ugly. It's not pretty at all. I personally know that. I mean, I was talking to my sister a couple days ago. I'm really close to my sister, Cammie. Oh, shoot, I probably shouldn't have said her name. My sister without a name. She probably won't care. But she was saying that she was on her computer and because she had loaded her phone and changed her phone, and a video of me came up drunk of us FaceTiming because I was notorious for calling when I was drunk. And she said like I had set the phone like down and I was like in the kitchen like cooking dinner and talking to her and I was so drunk. She's like, I didn't even recognize you. She's like, it disturbed me so much. She's like, I had to delete it. She's like, I didn't even, because I was like, no, give it to me. I'll put it online and show everybody what a fool I was. And she was like, Crystal, no, it like broke her heart. She's like, I did not recognize you. You were unrecognizable. And I think that's what we forget about drugs and alcohol is how unrecognizable we get, and in our minds we think we're the same person and we are not, unfortunately. So I'm excited to hear all about your story. Little update on me. I am doing pretty good. My health is still an issue. I have severe neuropathy from my lovely drinking. My feet are on fire on lava all day, which is no fun, but I've been doing blood work. I got some new doctors, and this holiday, I don't know if everybody knows that this was Thanksgiving weekend, and I had a really hard time. It was my first sober holiday, my very, very first one, because last year when I came to California, I was a hot mess. I was drunk, so drunk. I was literally at the holiday party, one of the holiday parties, and I parked my truck in the middle of the street, left it on and got out and went into the party. And just doing my thing. I'm totally out of control, and just completely embarrassing myself. So this was the year round, and here I am, my first sober Thanksgiving, and I get laid off at my job, and I'm like, you got to be kidding me. This is like Thanksgiving week. It's like a super busy week. I can make a lot of commission. I'm like devastated. So I'm calling my sponsor. I'm going to some extra meetings, just getting that encouragement. And I think that's something that we don't talk about. I mean, relapse is huge during the holidays. Yeah. And I feel like because I have a sponsor and because I surround myself with sober people, I really had a better armor than I thought I did. I was a lot stronger than I thought I was because I didn't want to drink, but I was down. I was frustrated. I was, I'm in the unknown, like what's next? I have to give it to God. It's like everybody, I'll put that in your God box. My sponsor told me today to put my mouth in my God box. I was like, thanks. So because I'm always, like I don't let it go. I dwell on it. I obsess on things. I'm a normal human being, and I have a lot of regular issues just like everybody else. And I think that's why people like to listen to this podcast, because they're like, you know what, I am regular and I do stress about this. And my, in-law does bother me. And, it really was hard not to drink on Thanksgiving, but, I did it because I stayed in contact with my sponsor. I stayed around people that were sober. Thank God my family does not drink. So our holiday was a non-drinking. The only thing that was really tough for me, is figuring out my identity. And this is something I want to talk to you about after I hear a little bit about you. But I get a little annoyed wherever I go now. It's like that's all anybody wants to talk about is my
Really?
sobriety,
Mhm.
and it's like I am more than my sobriety, and so it gets a little frustrating sometimes when it's just like, oh, okay, so how many days are you now? Or, oh, you look so good, you look so healthy, you look better than before, and you're just like, oh my gosh, okay, great. But it's like I have to stop myself and really, tell myself that, okay, it's, first of all, it's not about me, but secondly, that, really they just care. They just
Mhm.
care. They really just, are trying to tell me like good job in their way.
Right.
And I'm over here taking all this offense to it because, I'm thinking all they care about is the fact that I'm not drinking, or they're wondering if I'm going to show up sober, It's
Yeah.
like no matter how long you have, I don't have that much time. I mean, I'll be 7 months in a couple days, but it wasn't that long ago that they saw me with the drink, or they saw me intoxicated pulling my truck up to the holiday event. So it's
Mhm.
like I'm going to these events just like with this like weird thing in my head, like, oh, what are they thinking, like, do they remember last year?
Because
So
I don't. I
yeah,
don't
I
remember
know,
all of
I had to
it.
be told what happened. So yeah, so I mean the holidays are hard, and I'm here to tell you I got through it, and I'm proud of that. I got through it. I'm looking forward to Christmas now, because now I kind of know how to, gear up for it per se. I'm not like ready to go on a cruise or anything, but because there's no way right now you could put me on a cruise. I'd be like, forget it, I'm going to the bar. But that's, that has to do with new sobriety and working on my program and working with my sponsor. But I'm not afraid to say that the holiday was freaking hard for me. It really was, and I know it was for a lot of people, and I know some people that relapsed. And if you relapse, who cares? Come on back.
Right.
You did it, come on back.
What
The
has
main
happened?
thing is to keep doing it. It's okay. Sobriety is what we're trying to make awareness about. We're not promoting anything. There's no promoting sobriety. Nobody can make you sober. No
Yeah.
one's standing over my head saying, Crystal, you cannot drink, you cannot drink. I can do whatever I want.
Yeah.
I have chosen this because of my personal choices and my life becoming unmanageable, but also I have a lot to live for, and it was literally killing me. So enough about me, and I want to know more about you. So Shay, tell me, you are in Utah right now. Is it snowing?
You know what? It is not snowy. It's crazy. Usually around this time we've got snow and the ski resorts start opening because I'm in a little mountain town. And yeah, unfortunately, none of our skiers can ski because we haven't got
They
any snow
will, I'm
yet. So
sure. They will. They will,
yeah,
I'm sure.
usually
So
by Christmas.
absolutely. So, why don't you tell me? I have a couple questions for you. So, you are 36 years old, you are a mother, and how long have you been sober? Did you get sober in Utah? Was this where you lived? Has it been a lifelong thing? Because, like we're not young chickens anymore.
Mhm.
Um, but we're not old, so we have a lot of time left. But what made you get sober? How do you stay sober? And then we'll talk a little bit about your social media.
Okay, cool. So yeah, I was born in Utah, born and raised. So I've been here my whole life. I, typical. I don't know if anyone associates Utah with Mormons, but I was raised Mormon, the LDS culture, so it's a very conservative culture. However, I was raised with parents that drank, so it was kind of this culture of do as I say, not as I do, because the church taught not to, that you were not to drink, but my parents drank. My mom eventually stopped when I was around 11. She didn't have a problem with it, but it just became, she was actually one of those people who's just like, oh, this isn't serving me. I'm just not going to do it. Nothing like for me where it was something I couldn't control. I couldn't moderate, it got to that point for me. But my dad is an addict. He has drug problems still to this day. He's not clean. He's not sober, but I hope that my influence will get him there someday. But yeah, that was kind of hard to grow up in Utah in a conservative lifestyle, I guess you would say, but then also see the drinking and want to do that, be told not to do that. So in essence, I didn't start drinking until I was 19. And I was moved out of the house and married at 19. So that was kind of my, I am, I'm free. I can do it. And as soon as I took that first sip, it was, I don't know if you felt this way, but it was freeing. Like in the way that I feel free now that I'm sober from the alcohol. Back then, when I very first started drinking, it was free to be outgoing, free to be able to talk and be funny or the life of the party, because I felt so shy before, especially in such a conservative atmosphere. So yeah, it was my miracle alcohol when I first started drinking it. And I drank it every day for a long time. It caused me to get divorced from my first husband after just 2 years, which in the end, that's okay because my current husband is the best and he's stuck with me through all of this. So that's another story for another day. But yeah, so I've been in Utah. We moved up to this mountain town because of my drinking, because my husband was working up here and was 30 minutes from us, and I was picking up my kids drunk. And once he found that out, he was like, nope, we have to be in a spot where I can pick up the kids if I have to. Like, this can't, this can't happen. So it was like a forced move, but in the end ended up being the best thing because this is where I ended up getting sober. So yeah, like I said, I've been in Utah the whole time. What else did you ask me?
Did you do, it's okay. Did you do a rehab program or like a sober, any type of sober program to get sober?
So my first go at sobriety was 2010.
Okay.
That was a year after I got married to my current husband. So I've been on this journey for quite a while, actually. I had been drinking for every day for about 3 years when I went to rehab in 2010. So I knew that I needed to go, but I still, in my heart of hearts, felt like it was something that I would eventually be able to control, eventually be able to moderate. I would learn in rehab how to be able to drink responsibly. That was what that rehab was supposed to be for me, or what it did for me.
How long were you in rehab in 2010? Was it something that your husband said, hey, you need to go, or it was a personal, like, I have a problem, I'm going to go get fixed and come back and be better?
I did a 90-day inpatient program, and it was actually my baby sister, who's 11 years younger than me. She wrote me a letter, and she told me she was worried about me, and that she grew up with my dad too, so she saw some of the effects of his addiction. And so, yeah, that really hit home. And I kind of confessed to my husband how bad it really was, because I had been hiding my drinking. No one knew that I was drinking every day. Like, they only knew I was drinking when I was drinking with him. Like, he only thought I was drinking with him when he came home from work and we had a couple cocktails together. But actually, I had been drinking all day long, so it had.
How did you get away with that? I mean, were you working? Were you stay-at-home mom? How are you getting away with drinking? I know for me, I was drinking all through the night, and I was drinking in the morning, and I would have little minis that were like in my purse when I went to work. I had vodka bottles like stuffed in boots. Like, I had all kinds of ideas. What did you do?
we're going to give away all the hiding spots in closets, in tall boots, in hoodies, in the pockets of hoodies. I would always hide bottles there, in purses, in bags. Any bag of a closet, there's probably a bottle in there. Yeah. So I also would bring booze to work. I worked at tanning salons when I was first married to my husband before I went to that rehab. It was very weird because I would bring my liquor in water bottles so that, it would look like water bottle. But one day my water bottle wasn't there, out of my purse. Obviously, I'm not going to be like, where's my water bottle? Like, that's full of liquor. But they had to have known, because of my behavior at work. They had to have known. And they were just like, we're just going to take it from her when she gets here. Or they smelt it on me or something. And the manager just kept on taking it. Every time I would bring it to work, it would be gone.
And she wouldn't say anything?
Wouldn't say anything. And I wouldn't say anything. And it was crazy. One night I fell asleep in the tanning bed. My husband came pounding on the door at 2 a.m. because I fell asleep and I never came home from work.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That's, I mean, yeah, your husband's a trooper for sure. I've done that. Gosh, there was times where that would be the problem. I'd be asleep all the time, my friends would make fun of me. They would call me like the nap queen and all this stuff. And there was like one time one of my really close friends, I was supposed to be at an event like that I planned. Like I was a big event planner. And she walks in the house and I'm sleeping on a blown up mattress that is flat. Like in the whole mix of it, the thing was flat and I'm still dead out. And she wakes me up and I'm mad at her. Yeah. Okay. I had to make a little amends to her. And I'm like, what is your problem? I'm sleeping, and she's like, don't you remember you're supposed to be at this place? And I'm like, oh my God, it's like, I don't even know how I still have friends there.
Lose track of time.
Yeah. I would just go to sleep.
Yep.
Yeah. So yeah, alcohol is just unbelievable. I mean, that's why I'm so glad I wasn't a drug addict. I could have been. It just wasn't something that I ever got into because alcohol satisfied, it gave me what I needed. So I was like, that's good. But definitely plenty of times of, or I was dating somebody and, I would be at my desk and I would be, asleep, and the wine glass would be there and there'd be the entire bottle gone, and it's like, wake up. And then it's like, oh, have you been drinking? And I'd be like, no. Or like, I broke up with this person this one time. I was so mad because something happened between him and my kids, like not bad, like he had been talking to them for some reason in my mind, and so finally one day I asked my daughter, I'm like, what did he say to you? And she was like, oh, he was just asking how much you've been drinking at home. And I got so mad I broke up with him because I was like you can't talk to my kids like that, or like invade my privacy of drinking. I don't know. I was a mess. But yeah, I mean, anything like that. I was just, the behavior was out of control. But yeah, so then you went to rehab in 2010. You get out 90 days. You're doing good. Husband's probably happy. You have kids next, or what happens after that?
Yeah, so I stayed sober for about 2 years, and I had my oldest during that time.
Okay.
So I got pregnant right out of rehab and had my current, she's 10 now. She just turned 10. And I thought I was cured. I stayed sober for 2 years. I had my baby. I was doing good. I had gone to therapy and rehab. So I thought that, probably I was drinking to cope with my trauma from my childhood, because I had experienced sexual assault and also the religious trauma. And so I thought, oh, I'm past it. I got past that in rehab. Look at me. I stayed sober for 2 years. I can go back now. Like, it'll be totally different this time. I won't let it get out of control like I did last time. It was because I was coping. So I don't know how best to word it. I guess I can't say successfully drank, but I successfully drank for another several years. And I would have bouts of sobriety, oftentimes proving to people that I could, not really because I wanted to, just because someone was like, oh, like you're drinking a lot again, or this is, it seems like this is becoming out of control. And I would just be like, oh no, I'll prove to you that it's not a problem. And I would go 4 months, but then I would go back and it would become worse. It would get worse every time. It became so bad that finally toward the end, I was suicidal
Okay.
at the end of 2019. And so, I ended up in the behavioral health unit for 3 days. They put me on all sorts of medicine, and
Mm-hmm.
that's when we moved up here. Was after that I stayed sober for 4 months, and I relapsed again even after a
All of
stint in
that.
the behavioral health unit, the detox of all of that. And oh, I'm cured again. It's just crazy how your mind will play that trick on you, that I'm cured, I did it this long, I can control it this time. And that's never the case. And that was what I finally got to this last go around, when I finally quit for good.
I hear you. Okay, I have another question for you.
Awesome.
I don't even know how long I should do this, but I'll cut this part out. Okay, I'm gonna cut that part out, and here we go again.
Cool.
Okay. So I'm curious about. Okay, so you had a 10 years you're going through this, raising kids, struggling with addiction, came out of a 90-day program, which that's hard. Inpatient 90-day rehab. I did inpatient, and it is difficult. I can't even imagine doing it when it just wasn't as organized as it is now, and we don't have any social media. I mean, even though they take away your phones and everything like that, but they still use the resources to teach you and do therapy. And so then you have kids, then it's starting to happen again. Now you're picking the kids up drunk. Now you're starting to get rock bottom mentally. You're having suicidal thoughts. You go into a behavioral unit, you move, you go sober for 4 months, and then you relapse again, thinking that you can control this because you've had all this therapy, you've had all this detox and rehab. And then what happens after that? You relapse again, and tell me about that.
Yeah, so I relapsed again. It was New Year's Eve, and it was like, okay, this time I've really got it. I can really do this. No, it just came even quicker this time. And in the span of just 3 months, I think I ended up at the ER twice.
Mm-hmm.
So, I incurred quite a financial load on that. And that is super shameful for me, that my drinking would incur such a hardship for my family. So that was part of it during this last relapse. I hate to ever say anything's final, because I know that recovery is definitely a day at a time. But it was different because I ended up having a 3-day bender at the beginning of May, around Cinco de Mayo. Cinco de Drinko is what I used to always call it every year when I was drinking. But I woke up so sick, and I was going to have to go to the hospital for this 3rd time. And I was just like, I can't believe I've done this to myself again. It's only been 5 months since I, went back and I was going to control it. And here I am needing to go to the hospital again. And I just said, I'm done. And so I got real with myself, and I knew this time I had to take my proverbial big toe out of the pool, out of the drinking pool, because that was the thing, is I always had one toe in the water, that I could always go back, like that it was an option for me in someday in the future. And this time that was no longer an option. I had to learn how to live a life without drinking, and make that okay, and make it not be an obsession. And so I did an IOP this time. So instead of doing an inpatient, I did an intensive outpatient, because it was in the middle of COVID. It was, it was just a month or so after the lockdown. So we were able to do over Zoom, which I was really nervous about at first, because 10 years ago, everything was obviously in person. Right. And having that face-to-face connection, especially in recovery, seemed really important, because that's the only way I knew how to do it before. Now we've been doing this for a couple of years, and this Zoom thing that even you and I are doing feels comfortable, and it feels more natural now. But in the beginning, when I was doing this 19 months ago, the IOP, it felt strange that I was trying to connect with other people in recovery via Zoom classes, but it ended up working out. I did it for, it was pretty intensive. It was 3 hours a night, 3 nights a week for 4 months. And that was probably my most foundational tool that really helped in the beginning, because they give you assignments. It's a lot of character insight, kind of. You said you went to rehab, so
I did IOP too. So I did an intensive outpatient, and it was all Zoom, all over the phone, and lots of counseling, I guess you'd say. Really for me, because some of it I didn't feel like really pertained to me, which was frustrating sometimes, because no matter what, you had to do it. I think for me, and thank you for asking, I think the biggest thing is accountability. It was just this accountability that someone knew that I was an alcoholic. Your family can sort of be an accountability, because you've got to be sober around them. So it's like, okay, well, I used to do this, like, I drink, but I don't drink around my family, or I don't drink around this friend because they don't drink. Like, I would tailor my drinking around other people's preferences and think that I was like doing something for everybody. And so every time I talk on these podcasts, I realize like what an issue I was. But for me, it was like just accountability, like real accountability. And I didn't have a sponsor at the time. I had a sponsor that I got in rehab, but she was like in a different town, and it was all over the phone, and she was kind of busy, and I really didn't understand what a sponsor was. I just knew I needed one. So I like called on a list. I like went down the list and like interviewed them, which one lady like yelled at me about. She's like, "Are you interviewing me?" Like, I was like, kind of. I was like, kind of, I'm gonna tell you my whole life story. So I kind of was just doing all the things that they said to do, like get a sponsor, go to rehab, now you're going to do IOP. And like, I don't know what any of this means. What's an IOP? And I got to call these people, make it all work. And then they're mailing me stuff. So it was just like, what is this? But at the end of the day, it was like, I had to go 3 days a week. I had to answer the phone, when the person called. And so it was a huge accountability, because 6 months ago I did my own thing. I didn't have anybody I was accountable to. I was going to bars. I was drinking at home. Like, no one called and said, "Hey, how much are you drinking tonight?" Like, I ended up in the hospital seizing, and then it was like, "Oh, you've been drinking a lot last night." Like, there was no accountability for me. So, and I think that's what happens with people who are relapsing, is they're just trying to do it all on their own. And that's kind of my message is, I always say my mess is now my message. That I'm not alone. I have you, I have the other people that I'm surrounding myself with, and I have this major accountability, because when you find out like how many people you would disappoint, and if you're being an example or you're being somebody that people look up to, it's a huge accountability, and it's great. It's good for me. It's what I need. And sometimes it's hard to ask for that or even be that. But I think anybody that's new or that's struggling, or I know people, they've been sober 10 years and they're relapsing because of COVID, because their mental health is not good. And, it's okay to just get some accountability, to get that mental health accountability, to, just say, "Hey, I'm not," you don't even have to say like, "Hey, I'm over here wanting to commit suicide and I'm an alcoholic." Like, it's okay to say, "Hey, like, I'm not doing good right now. Like, I don't feel myself right now. Where can I find some resources? How do I get into a rehabilitation? How much is it going to cost me? Because everybody, all we know as a society is to stop cold turkey. You stop drinking, right? You go to the beach, you have 2 cases of White Claws and 97 margaritas, and you wake up, in your own pee the next day, and you're like, "I quit," It's like, so it's like, that's all we know as a society is like, I'm quitting. But then we have it everywhere in the grocery stores, and it's just all over us. And so then it's like a commercial. It's okay, it's okay, I'm gonna start over, like you said. You're like, I got this time, I got it, like, I'm not gonna do it. And I noticed something that you said, which really I felt like resonated in this topic, is that when you relapsed and you came back and then you said you could do it again, like you could control it, it came faster.
Yep.
Like
Every time.
each time
Hmm.
you came back to alcohol, the disease progressed faster.
Yes.
And that's huge. I people don't talk about this stuff. I'm telling you, I listen to so many podcasts, and there's some great sober podcasts out there. I listen to the Seltzer Squad. They're super cool. If you ever want to have me on your podcast, that would be rad. But the only thing with them is they cuss a lot, and I don't have any cussing on my podcast because of I respect my mother, and I'm a Christian, so I try. But they're hardcore in that. And there's a couple other ones, Sober Powered. I love Jill. She's super cool. She's a chemist, so she like knows how it works, but she's got a different way of living. I mean, her husband drinks, like, it's totally different story. For me, so that's my question to you. My next question that I had for you is, how now is your husband living this sober lifestyle as well, because he's so excited that you're actually living it? Because now you're gonna be 2 years coming up, or you are 2 years?
Nope. So I'm almost 19 months. I'll
Okay,
be
19 months.
May. Yeah.
May. Oh, what's your date? My date's May 4th.
Oh my gosh, we're so close. May 6th.
Okay, crazy.
That's
so
awesome.
Yeah, May's a big. So I'll be 1 year, you'll be 2 years. That's awesome.
Very cool.
Yeah. So tell me about him. Like, okay, so he's been through it with you for 10 years. He's seen you in rehab. He's seen you drunk with the kids. Your partner always knows everything about you. They know. Like,
I was a really good hider, unfortunately. Poor guy.
Yeah, I'm sure he was probably, not devastated, but in shock a little bit when he heard, how much you were drinking and how you were hiding it. And I don't know how you had it financially, because that's the other thing is, if you're in a relationship and you're sharing finances, and you're spending, one person spending all this money on alcohol, and the other person doesn't know, it's like, that's a whole nother spouse issue. So back to
a lot of betrayal.
Yeah.
A lot of amends to do. I'm very fortunate that he was able to see that there was a different side of me than just a drunk person, and he's actually a normie, or what they call a normie.
Yeah.
So he can take it or leave it. And he doesn't really like hard liquor, which is what my drink of choice was. I was like, give me a shot of anything hard. I just want it in my system the quickest way possible. I don't want to sip on a beer that takes forever and then I have to pee. It's too much liquid. So I was just get it in, get it quick kind of girl. And so, he still drinks beer. That's totally fine. It doesn't bother me because, like I said, beer wasn't really my drink of choice, I guess. But he doesn't have hard liquor in the house or wine or anything like that, just because that's a little bit more of a trigger for me. And I think that's different for everyone. You have to do what works for you, and that boundary should be a boundary. I think boundaries are important when we get sober, because they help stave off those triggers. They don't let them just be in our face a lot of times if we can set those boundaries with people. But yeah, so he's able to just take it or leave it. He doesn't have that pull to alcohol. Like,
now, what about your oldest? Your oldest, is 10 and has been in and out of this as well. Are they aware now that obviously they know you're aware you're sober, but are they aware of the changes, and do they, say anything about it? Is it something that, you're so public? And I think about these things because my kids are bigger now and they are not small, but if I would have gotten sober when the kids were little and I was doing, PTO, well, actually I wasn't drinking when they were doing that, but let's just say in high school, because that's when I did most of the drinking, because I had 2 teenage girls at home. It was like 2 against me. And I was, a single mom with 2 of them. And so I drank a lot. And I just can't imagine if I went sober, how many moms would not invite me to so much stuff, and like you totally would be secluding yourself. in your own little town. I mean, it's great that we can say, oh, we're sober on social media, but what happens in our real world is important too.
That's very true.
How we have our day to day dropping off our kids, and you've got principal Sandy and PTO mom Jody over here, and they're on social media, and they're like, oh, there she is, that's the alcoholic.
Yep.
Does that ever affect you, or is that something that you have dealt with?
Yes, really good questions. Thanks. So, for my oldest, she is completely aware of my alcoholism. She's completely aware of the disease. She's aware of my uncles. My mom has 8 brothers. 2 of them have passed away from alcoholism. So she's aware that, it can be fatal. And one of her favorite shows is Intervention. She likes to see, what can happen. And I think that it's great that she can take that, and it's not harmful for her. It's a teaching tool. And she, even when her dad drinks beer or orders a beer at a restaurant, she's like, Daddy, why are you drinking beer if mom can't? And he's like, because I can. Do I get weird, or do I get different if I drink alcohol? And she says no. He's like, okay, if I ever do, or if it's ever something that bothers you, will you tell me? And she says, yeah. So she can see, there's a difference in someone that can handle alcohol and stop when they're supposed to and order, 1 beer at dinner, versus what I was doing when I was not waking up and I was sleeping all day long and I was sick nearly every day. We've been able to have that conversation. And I do hope that it sticks with her as she gets older. That's all you can really hope for, because she's 10, she's not even a teenager yet, but she will be soon. So I do hope that the conversations that we're having do something. But I'm very much an open book with her and with my little one about it. I don't want to hide that from them because it is such a part of my life. It's something that will be forever, because like you said, the accountability part of it, that's so big for me. And having such a public platform on Instagram and, talking to people like you on podcasts and stuff, I love doing it. I love just letting other people know I've been there. Like, I've been where you are. I did this song and dance for 16 years. And I thought that I would never be able to not have alcohol in my life. Like, I didn't think I could have fun. I didn't think my life would be exciting. I didn't think I could have joy. How would I ever de-stress, But it's just, now I want to shout it from the rooftop. So of course my kids are going to know. And as far as this town, it's such a small town, and it's, like I said, a tourist town. So it's a drinking town. Everywhere you go, it's drinking. My neighbors, they just put a little post on Facebook. Their advent calendar is a beer and a nip per day. It's like, that's what people do. Mm-hmm. I just have to kind of laugh, because I can't do that, but other people can, and I can't fault them for that. I'm not going to judge you for drinking. Just don't judge me for not. And that's kind of where I stand. And I think that as long as I show a good example and don't judge other people for drinking, that they respect my decision. And that's kind of what I've found. So it's actually been pretty cool.
That's awesome. You brought up another subject that I think is really good. I'd like to I have a couple ideas for some podcast, with divorce and kids, and having one parent that's a drinker and one parent that's not, but it's a situation where it's like shared custody or visitation. That's something that a lot of people deal with because so many people are divorced. And yeah. I was divorced from my kid's dad immediately. So like my kids have never seen us together. And when I hated him because he cheated on me. So, he was, yeah, I mean, whatever. I've talked about it in my other podcast, and that ship sailed. But when I was raising them, because he didn't help at all, I would beg him to take them on the weekends, and he would be supposed to be picking them up, and he wouldn't show up. Well, there was times when they got older, they would bring up or they would say stuff like, oh, Dad says you're an alcoholic, and I would be like, well, your dad this and your dad that. So like not only did my alcoholism cause issues with my kids, it cross blended into my divorce with their dad and
Yeah.
caused this whole thing where they were in the middle of our judgment zone,
Mhm.
and when you're drinking you just make all these excuses, and that's what I would do. I would excuse everything. I mentioned this in another podcast. My excuses were, outrageous. I mean, I went drunk to my daughter's senior graduation, and I'm like drunk, and I'm like, yeah, but your dad didn't show up, so hey, like,
So I win. I'm here.
yeah. Good
Yeah,
for me. Give gold star on my forehead.
I know.
And so, my kids have gone through a lot, but I actually think that there's families out there that are going through more. Like, where we were fortunate, there's a lot of good that came from our family, and I am a very I pride on it, women empowerment. I've always been that way. Working hard and getting to the top on my own. And my kids, I ingrained that into them. And so now, they're 20 and 21, they're completely successful, which, they didn't have like this terrible, terrible life. Um, but I do think people don't really talk about how people get divorced, and then like one side drinks and the other side doesn't drink, or they both drink and then they
Mhm.
start talking trash about each other, and the kids are in the middle of it. So there's a lot of that. So at least now, at least you have a situation where your daughter's safe, she understands, and I think it's great that she watches Intervention. That's so cool. What a crazy. I remember I used to think that my family would do an intervention on me, and I thought, I swear to God, if they do an intervention on me, I'm gonna lose it. You know what I mean? But then no one did. No one said anything because I was good like you. I was a functional drunk.
Yeah.
I mean, I just was. I was a home drinker. I would drink all the time, all day, and I loved it. I loved who I was. I don't know why, but I'm learning to love myself now, who I am now.
Yeah.
And that takes a lot of therapy, and like you said, it's one day at a time. And it's the holidays now, and I'm surrounding myself with people that are sober. I'm kind of, I'm trying to be spiritually fit. I'm not perfect, but
Good
you know
job getting through Thanksgiving, though. I mean,
yeah.
those first holidays, like you said, they are hard, they are tough, and but you flex that muscle, you got through it
Yeah.
one time, and it's crazy how once you just do it one time, it becomes easier every time. You just
Yeah.
build, build,
It's
build.
like I think what makes it hard too is like you almost have deja vu. It's like especially at my age, I'm 42. I mean, I've had 42 Christmases. I mean, whatever, minus my childhood. So like, let's just say I've had 20 something Christmases that are, pretty embedded in me. And you have this like deja vu of what it's supposed to be.
Yes.
And for some reason, you can't, like you said, you can't imagine it without alcohol because
Yep.
it's just been a part of it. It's like having a
Don't know
Christmas
how to do
tree.
it.
Yeah, it's like having
Um,
a Christmas tree with no presents, and you're still doing Christmas, and you're like, something's missing. Where are the presents? So like that's how I feel. I feel like I was at Thanksgiving with no turkey.
mhm.
So it's just retraining your brain, and having people around you sharing their experiences and sharing the way they got through the holidays. I go to my program meetings, and people share about, how they made it through, and how they made the mistake of going to, a drinking one and feeling so out of place. And like, I do feel like that. I feel like I'd be very out of place now, but I also stay away because I'm too fresh and I don't want to put myself in that situation. I mean, if I didn't swim, I would not keep jumping into a pool. I have to learn how to swim in that pool before I can get in, and that's what I'm doing. I'm getting life lessons. I'm reinventing myself at 42. I'm the same person, obviously, but alcohol is a addiction and a disease that takes your personality and it takes your mental alignment, per
Mhm.
se. Okay, so you have this mental alignment, and it just drifts it, and for some reason we just stay there. And so now I'm just trying to mentally align my mental health into this healthy living lifestyle, because alcohol was killing me not only mentally, but, physically. It really is toxin. Everything is in moderation, and uh, moderation was not a word in my vocabulary, and it's not a word in my vocabulary for anything. I'm like, my friends call me extra. Like, they're like, you're so extra. And it's like, and that's why I think I get along with all these alcoholics, because we're just like so fun, and like we have these giant personalities, and then I'm like a Leo, so I'm like, I will not quit. I made this decision. You will not break me. Like, so
awesome,
stubborn.
the perseverance of it. It's crazy.
Yes, it is crazy.
Once we put the focus as much into our recovery as we did into our drinking, we are powerful.
Yeah, and
we
that's
have very powerful brains.
Kind of wonder where I wanted to gear before we go. I want to talk about your social media platform, because that's how I notice you. I am the type of person where I gravitate to one, no nonsense. I'll be totally honest. I have whatever you want to call it, friended, followed, whatever, those that are promoting sobriety, as like a Macy's label. And I can't stand it, because being sober for me is hard. It's not easy. And when I see someone like sporting a sports bra, or like, doing a jumping jack in New York City type thing, I'm like, shut up. Like, you don't even know how hard it is to go through addiction. Like, just because you stop drinking and now you're drinking something else, so for me, I'm really into people who are genuine and what they have to say. And when I found your account, I just was like, whoa, like, she has some really deep things to say, and they resonated to me. And so that's what made me attracted to you, because then I was like, ooh, follow her. And there was days I would get on, and like, when you start following people, like, that stuff pops up first, and I would get on it, and you would have like, something that you post on your Instagram, and I would just be like, man, that really is true. Or, you know what, I went through that. And so that's when I was like, I got to talk to this girl. I got to see what she's all about. I got to get her on this podcast. And then the more I got to know you, you're just this incredible person who's, promoting sobriety. You've actually been through it. This struggle. I mean, I know it's cliche, but the struggle is real.
The struggle is real.
But it is. And, I see all these great things happening on your page, and you're starting to really blossom as a sober influencer. And I just love that about you. And I love people that are genuine, and you're a mom and a wife, and there's just going to be people that listen to this podcast, and they're going to be in the same situation, and they're going to either get some help, or they're going to, have hope. And that's what you and I are here for. That's why we're sitting here right now, because even on my darkest day, which they happen often because I'm a regular person in real life. I mean, I lost my job last week, and I did a job interview for the first time sober yesterday.
You're like, another first.
And like, I want to like tell the person on the interview, it's like, what's your current job? Being sober.
Being sober. I'm doing this sober with you. You should be so happy.
Listen, I'm not gonna drink on the job this time, I swear. So I'm like doing this interview, and like, it's in the back of my head, and I have to like calm down and just do a regular interview, because since I've been sober, I've kind of checked out on my career. I'm not ready to do it. And I used to work in bars and run restaurants, so I'm not there. It's just stupid. So right. I'm kind of going in a different direction in my management career and stuff like that, but we'll see. God's got a plan for me. But it was kind of funny yesterday, just doing this interview in the back of my head, thinking, I swear to God, because she said, she saw my email, and it said soberonions@aol.com, and she's like, oh, Sober Onions. And I was like, yeah, I have a podcast. And I'm like thinking, please leave it at that. Please leave it at that.
I hope she listens and she loves you and she loves you. That would be awesome.
Well, it's a sales position, so hopefully. Good. But yeah, so I want to tell me just a little bit more about your social platforms and how you come up with all this stuff, and if it's just something you do daily. What's your commitment, and why are you doing it anyway?
Oh goodness, it started as an accountability thing because I got out of the IOP and I was like, uh-oh, I don't have something to do like with my whole life now. So I still need to stay accountable to people. And I did the AA thing and I still have an AA home group. It just wasn't the best path for me. And so I decided to just start an Instagram kind of as a diary of sorts.
Okay.
And then, you know, it just is kind of actually kind of stuck as a diary. I kind of go through and I'll sit and I'll write down like in my journal, you know, my regular daily journal. But then it's crazy how much comes up from my past and how much how much I remember from 19 months ago. Even though that seems like a long time, it also seems short. It's one of those kind of time conundrums where it's like that seems so long ago, but it also seems like it hasn't even been 2 years. And so a lot of my content is just from my daily experience and remembering what it was like when I was drinking, and just trying to reach the person that's still struggling more than anything, because I remember how hard it was and how bad it felt. And that's just not a fun place to be when you get that mentally exhausted and alcohol is really taking its toll on your life and you're not doing good, you know. I remember that, and I remember just the pain. So yeah, that's who I'm trying to reach now. That's my ultimate goal. I just want people to be out of pain. I want people to be able to be happy and live, you know that they can be happy without alcohol. I just literally thought it wasn't possible. So just trying to show that it is.
That's awesome. Well, I commend you. I've enjoyed this so much. I love it. I'm excited because my first season is going to be interviewing people, and then I'm going to bring everybody back, and we're going to talk about some real issues, and so it's going to be really fun. But with that, I just want to say thank you so much. You guys can find Shay. I'm going to put everything in the show notes, everything that you need to know to find her, to follow her, to see what she's doing for the sober community. And thank you so much, Shay, for coming on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. And thank you so much for your work too. You're doing amazing things with this podcast. It's amazing how different platforms can reach different people. And when we do what works for us, it reaches the people that it needs to reach. So I commend you as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And guys, remember, if I can do it, we can do it. With that, I'll see you on the next podcast. Woo-hoo! Remember, I'm on YouTube as well, so you can see this show live and you can see me in my RV with my Christmas tree. All right, guys, have a great week. Happy holidays. And again, this is Sober Onions Podcast. Have a great day.